Live. Okay, great. Yeah, so hi everyone. I guess this is us back again trying to get this pod up and running on a better platform. So hopefully the audio is working for everybody a little bit better this time around. I'm Michael. I'm here with Mutz and Colin, just a couple of friends who are hanging out, trying to get our thoughts on the NBA season, basketball in general. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Yo, yo, Moots over here. Yeah, can't wait to get this season started off. There's gonna be a lot of interesting talk, and we're gonna go between the lines with a lot of things.
Call in here, man. Let's go. Let's see what's going on.
So since we're starting at the beginning of a new season again, I think the best way to kick things off really is to have the conversation about various predictions and everything. We can see what our thoughts on about what teams we're going to following, what teams we're not going to be following, which teams we have hope for, players, etc. Teams to look out for. So I think the easiest way to be doing top 10 in the West, top 10 in the East, and if there are any teams that we think are going to stand out. Any teams or players we think are going to stand out. So let's start with on the West side, top 10 teams in the West. Yeah, so the West is hella deep this year. So before we move on from the West to the East, we're going to do the four teams in the West that are going to compete against each other for that playing spot. And in so doing, we're going to really identify what we think are our top six teams coming out of the West. Where possible, I'm going to try and identify specifically which teams I think will be playing each other in the West, i.e., I'll be able to do the middle teams, 3, 6, 4, 5, fairly comfortably. But of course, because 7 and 8 won't be available to us, I won't be able to do those teams just yet. But in any case, it shouldn't stop my top four teams being more or less solidified by the end of this in terms of predictions for the end of the year, where we're going to end up. So I'm going to kick it off with my top 10 teams in the West, and then I'm going to kick it over so that you guys can share your thoughts on your top 10 teams. So straight off the bat, I'm going to go with my teams in order as I see it now. I think Dallas has positioned itself really, really well. And I strongly believe that Dallas is coming out at the top of the West this year, with OKC following close behind, with extremely strong positioning for every subsequent year for the next 3, 4 years. Then I have Denver, Minnesota, Phoenix, Lakers, New Orleans Pelicans, San Antonio Spurs, Golden State, and begrudgingly Clippers over Sacramento Kings for that number 10 spot. Therefore, not making the playoff playing picture, the five teams I have are Sacramento Kings, Memphis Grizzlies, Utah Jazz, Houston, and Portland. I'm not so sure about Utah in that position order, largely because I see some moves coming out of Utah. But for the time being, I think it's fair to say that I have them in that unlucky number 13 slot. But their team has some work to do, and I think there's some work that can be done. So they may actually make it into the play-in / playoff race before the end of the season. But yeah, those are my 10 teams as best as I can say in order at the time of this recording. I should point out that I haven't watched any. I've watched a couple of early games. I haven't watched any New Orleans games. I haven't watched any Golden State games. I haven't watched any Denver games. So these are fairly things, and I haven't watched a lot of preseason. I think I may have watched one or two very early preseason games, but they were not significant in my thought process. My thought process is largely going off of what I knew from the previous year, plus what I think they did in the off season. Over to you, Moots.
Okay, cool. So, like, actually, I have pretty much almost the same as you. Just that for me, Mavs are number one, like like you, OKC as well. But then here I have the Suns getting over the Nuggets, basically because I was thinking of the injury that happened to Beal last season, and they, that big three, that three-headed monster in the Suns, they didn't play a lot together. And then also they got Mike Budenholzer as their coach, great offensive-minded coach. So I think they're gonna have a powerful offense to get past the Nuggets. And then I have the Wolves coming in, then the Clippers, Lakers, and Spurs. For the play-in, I have the Grizzlies and Pelicans. I think you know, I didn't see too many things happening with the Grizzlies and Pelicans, so I think they just might scratch the surface and then battle it out with the Lakers and the Spurs. Lakers, yeah, as well, they have some other stories going on. Spurs, I think they just need a little bit more time to gel. So, like, even if their ranking may be a little bit like low, who knows what they may do in the playoffs? If they, well, no, I'm saying that they're gonna make the playoffs. But yeah, I think during the season they just might not hold a great record just because I think they're a team that needs time to gel. Whereas, like with the Mavs, I actually saw like a game of the Mavs. And I think the gel has already it has already happened, or at least has gotten to the point where like they can only improve from here on. I don't think they need to figure out too many things to make their offense and defense work. Now the reason why also I have the Clippers in, and this we can go into another discussion as well. Like you have the Clippers not making the playoffs. I think they're going to make the playoffs, and I really like their squad. They have they've made some great changes, a lot of pluses in the off season, and I really love the pickup of Jeff Van Gundy as their defensive coordinator. I think they're going to be a great defensive team. But then yeah, so then quickly going into like who's not going to make it. Unfortunately, as much as I love the Warriors, I don't think they're going to make it unless they make some big moves, which could be, another prediction that we have whereby they might be the ones to shift things up in the Western Conference or the NBA itself. And then obviously, yeah, Jazz, Blazers, and Rockets. I don't know what's going on there, but I just don't see them making the playoffs or the play-in. So for the Western Conference, that's my 10, the 8 making it, and the teams in the play-in.
Sorry, before we move on, what were your five at the bottom? I got Golden State, Jazz, Rockets, and Blazers. What was the fifth team?
The fifth team, the Pelicans, right? And then because then I've capped off all the other teams, I think. Yeah, I don't think the Pelicans are gonna make it.
Sorry, can
Uh,
you repeat your top 10 again? Yeah.
so top 10 in order. So number one, I have the Mavs, OKC, Suns, Nuggets at 4, then the Wolves, Clippers, Lakers, and Spurs.
Okay, so I have OKC at 1, Minnesota at 2, Phoenix at 3, Lakers at 4, Dallas at 5, Denver at 6, Golden State at 7, Clippers at 8, Memphis at 9, and then for 10, it's a toss-up between Sacramento and New Orleans for me. OKC, I think they're really going to take it this time. I could see them at least in the final or conference final, something like they're I think they've hit their peak. So I expect them to do something. Minnesota, they just have that energy. So they have Ant-Man, they have a good team. So I just feel like they take it up a notch this season. Suns, I have them at 3 because I'm just always going to root for KD. It's my favorite player. So maybe it's wishful thinking. So that one is just a fun pick. But yeah, I hope they can end up at 3 because they have the team for it. I think they can do good things with that team. Lakers are 4 because well, LeBron's not slowing down. Like Yeah, I just watched him play yesterday or the day before. I mean, he's incredible. And the kid is good. The rookie Connect or whatever, he's good. So I think they will do really good. Four, I don't think is far-fetched for them. Dallas at five because I feel like they will still need to get some things together. Injuries might play a part. I don't know. I just don't see the gear switching to a very different level. I expect them to reach at least the conference finals as well, but I think during the season they're never really like a 1, 2 seed team. They kind of just keep it kind of regular during the season. I'm never really convinced by them, so I have them at five. Denver at six. I feel like people have figured them out, so then they're not going to do the same. Yeah, I think the jig is up for them, so it would be a hard six for them as well, but not an easy six, I think. I have Golden State at seven because yeah, I think they still have it. I mean, Steph is Steph, and just watching the recent games, they're playing good basketball. Just a few things that they'll probably iron out as the season goes on. I see Steph throwing a few no-look passes and expecting someone to be there, and they're not. I feel like those are things they'll just fix up during the season, but they're playing good basketball. So seven, I think, is kind of deserved for them. Clippers at eight, because I feel like the energy in the new arena will kind of help them despite their team. They just don't think it's a very good team. I know Mutsu, you differ on that one, but I just don't see it. Kawhi is never available. I just don't see it. But I feel like just that new arena energy will kind of propel them at least to the eighth, at the very least. Memphis at nine. I feel like they're still not yet ready. A few more reps, they should be where they need to be, but they're not yet ready. Sacramento, for me, it's a toss-up between Sacramento and New Orleans at 10. Yeah, I also think they're just missing that next level gear. Like they're not there yet. Like they're good enough to come to the dance, but not to really be the star of the show. Yeah, that's my 10.
Can you speak a little bit on the five that you have outside?
The ones outside, I feel like it's kind of Trailblazers. They're not doing nothing. Their basketball is horrible. The team is horrible. I mean, I love Chauncey as a coach, but I think they are really at the very early stages of building a team, and yeah, it's just not working. San Antonio, I didn't include because while I feel Wemby will have a breakout type season, I mean, I don't even know what would be considered breakout. He's pretty broken out already, but I just don't feel that they have it to take it to the rest of the teams in the West. It's not a knock on the team. It's just they're not as good as the other teams. Portland, I feel, is just bad. Those are just outright bad. The Jazz, I'm not sure what's happening over there. Like, also just outright not very good at the moment. Who else did I leave out? Yeah, that would be probably about it. But generally, whoever I left out, I feel it's like they're just not good enough. Some of them are actually just bad, but maybe two, three of them are just they're good, but not good enough to make it to the dance. I feel like Spurs is a big one on that. They're good, but I don't see them coming out the West.
Okay. Yeah, those are clearly we have a lot of discussion here coming out of the West. I don't know how best to tackle some of the things that I've heard. I'm glad to hear that we've got some agreement in terms of the teams that are at least making it to the dance, as they say. The strength of those teams we can discuss further. I think that would be a good talking point for perhaps another. Maybe if we have enough time at the end of this, we can go back to talking about the strength of each teams one by one. But clearly, we have a little bit of debate to go on there for things. Certainly, I'm really excited to see what's going on in the West. I think the West is super deep this year, all the way through. I think certainly through the top 10, if not 11 teams, it's a super deep West. I don't think that any one team is going to set itself apart. So I think it's going to be fairly close in terms of the standings at the end of the year along the West. So in terms of win losses in teams, I think those last five teams, with the exception maybe of Portland and Houston, who I don't see a way of improving. So their best bet is to race to the bottom and hope for a nice top pick in next year's draft. Discussion point for a future episode.
Yeah, no, no. I was gonna say, no, I 100% agree with you on that, and probably, yeah, we'll have to have like a specific like segment or episode where we focus on like the West, because I feel like you said, there's 11, maybe even 12 teams possibly, where that could make the playoffs. But then in the East, I mean, and we'll talk about it. It doesn't seem as if they have a much shorter, much fewer teams that could potentially make the playoffs and probably who want to win the championship. So I think there should still be a little bit of focus on the West. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
The West is going to be a really easy discussion point just because of how competitive it could potentially be. I think this season, I'd be very shocked if we don't have, when it's all said and done in June, a Western Conference team holding the championship. I would be very surprised. We can talk about the contenders coming out of the East, and certainly that's where we're heading to for this round two of this discussion about top 10 teams, teams coming out. But certainly it's going to be a very interesting Conference discussion, whereas strong teams coming out of the East. Well, let's just get into it. Since I started the last time around, Colin, you want to start this time around with the East?
I have Boston at one because yes, Boston. Yes, I have us at one. Boston at one. Cleveland at two. New York at three. Milwaukee at four. Philly at five. Indiana at six. Miami at seven. Chicago at eight. Atlanta at nine. Charlotte at 10. I have Boston because I feel like they have the momentum, they have the energy coming into the season. Like you have to protect the crown, but also because I feel like I mean we'll talk about it later. I feel like JT will have an MVP season this time around. I feel like he took the Olympics a bit personal. He's been going crazy. Boston at one. Cleveland, they're playing good basketball. I mean, and just off of the team they have, I feel like they've put in enough reps at this point, so they have a system down. I feel like they'll do something. New York, yeah, I feel like they have the energy as well coming in from last season. I feel like they have something to prove. They have Cat, he's looking good. He's I know they lost shooter in Vincenzo, but Cat is the best big shooter. So I feel like they didn't make a big loss on that. But I like how they're playing, and Madison Square is Madison Square. The fans will always kind of will it to existence. But I feel like they come in with a chip on their shoulder from last season. They were kind of it was a disappointing end, we all kind of thought more of them. So I feel like they're going to come to back that up. Milwaukee at four, cause yeah, the Greek Freak is the Greek Freak. I mean, some of these teams are able to get through with just one dude, and they have Dame and they have the Greek Freak. I feel like, yeah, it just gives them they've been able to do it before with just the Greek Freak and four bodies. So, I mean, not necessarily four bodies. I mean, he has had a few good guys, but generally, I feel like with Dame, I feel like they'll be able to at least make the fourth seed. Like, shouldn't be such a big issue for them in the East to come out fourth. Philly have five because much as they have Embiid and Paul George, I just feel the two are never really 100%. So you don't know what you get from them on any given day. You'll get the points and stuff, but I just don't see them propelling a team to like a one seed or to like a conference winner or even a finals winner. Just the two, it's just for me, it's a bad mix. It's like two guys who are just going to encourage each other to be bad. I don't know. It's just my thinking, but I'm not big on Philly, but I feel like even with that being said, just the two of them will wheel them into fifth seed at the very least. Indiana, because yeah, I think Halliburton is kind of going down, so I'm not too big on them. I don't think he's coming in the same way as Tatum, like took the Olympics personal or whatever. He's just gone into the social media and all this. Like I feel like his little 15 minutes might be coming up to an end, because I don't see him like really getting his game back where it was when he was really shining. Yeah, but I feel like still they make it sixth. I feel he might have a few flashes of brilliance here and there to kind of propel them. Miami at seven, they're not good in the regular season, so I just have them barely making it into the playoffs. Chicago, I feel like Chicago has good energy this season. They have a good team. They have Lonzo back. I don't know. I just feel like they scratch through in the play-in and make it to the playoffs. And I feel like they'll disrupt something in the East. They might come out a little better than we think. Atlanta at nine. Yeah, I mean, Trey Young looks like he doesn't want to be there, but just comparing with the teams I've left out, I feel like Atlanta can at least make it to nine. Charlotte, yes, same story like with Atlanta. LaMelo is good, team is good. I just don't know if they can get out of that. They don't have that gear, that next gear. Yeah, but yeah, that's my 10. I left out Detroit because yeah, they're still rebuilding over there. Toronto, yeah, they're just not good right now. Who else is in the East? Yeah, but pretty much same reasons as the West. If I left them out, it's just they're just not up to par or they're just straight up not good. Like Toronto is just straight up not good, and Detroit is straight up not good. Like some of them are just, yeah, not good. Orlando is just not up to par, for example. Yeah. But yeah, that's my East. Over to Moots, I guess.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I think again we're pretty much on scale, and I like that. Just a few changes here and there, because like I was thinking, okay, coming off of last season and then going into this season with some of the changes that were made in the off season. So number one, I have Celtics. Number two, Bucks. Three, Sixers. Four, Cavs. Five, the Heat. Six, Pacers or Magic. So that's, yeah, 6 or 7, Pacers, Magic. I got the Knicks at 8. The Hornets and the Hawks, I think, can do 9. And then 10, yeah, that's Raptors, Hawks, and then the rest, yeah, Nets and Wizards and Pistons. I don't think they're looking to do anything this season. But yeah, no, basically, why I have Celtics at number one is that And Colin, you touched on this, like what happened, in the summer with the Olympics. I think that was something significant. I mean, how can we have somebody like Jason Tatum getting DNPs? It doesn't make any sense. And then, he's all team NBA, all NBA, and then you have Jaylen Brown, who, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and he doesn't get the invite, and instead White gets it. So I think there's gonna be some like ego things going on there, and I think Celtics want to prove something a little bit more from coming off of last season. They've gelled well as a team. They're great defensively, offensively. So yeah, I definitely think they're gonna be the front runners in the East at number one, and probably even take the championship again. So number two, I have Bucks. The reason why, because I think coming off of last season, Damian Lillard and Giannis can now play a little bit more in style together. It didn't seem as if it was happening last year, and as well, they didn't get many chances as we saw even in the playoffs. But then, yeah, Giannis is a force in himself. Hopefully, Dame will become Dame Dollar again and do his thing up in Milwaukee. And then for the Sixers, the number three is that like I think they'll start the season off slow because of the big offseason move they got with getting Paul George. But I think with Tyrese Maxey kind of holding the fort for majority of the season, I think they'll win enough games to make it at the third seed in the East. And then and then the Cavs, just because of what they did last season, I haven't really followed what they did this offseason, but I think just coming off of last season, I think they have a decent squad, so I think they can make it to four. Number five, Heat, because yeah, they're generally not a good season team. I think they use this season as, building up the squad for the playoffs. But yeah, I don't know how well that will that will work out for them. And then Pacers Magic, basically, yeah, I'm not too sure about the Pacers, but I think the Magic, they're looking to really improve and go a little bit deeper in the playoffs. So, and then they have a new star coming up with Banchero. So I think they're gonna do good in this season. Now, the reason why I have Knicks at number eight is because I really didn't like the trade actually they did with getting with getting Karl Anthony Towns. And then what they lost was really huge. DiVincenzo, he was kind of like a glue guy, spot up shooter, and then also his defense, and he brings the energy. Who's gonna bring that energy now for the Knicks? And then also they lost Hartenstein, and who was they had another center that played really really well during the playoffs. He was he was I forgot his name, but he was the one that brought he was a center. He brought a lot of energy, a lot of grit, and that's really needed. And I think that's also like kind of like a personality for the Knicks. So I think the Knicks really lost out, losing those three very key players who were able to, in my opinion, help the Knicks make that push further into the playoffs, and then also get the wins during the season. And then yeah, Hornets and Hawks. The only reason why I have the Hawks there is because of the number one pick. Already forgot his name. But yeah, the number one pick coming in from France, I think is gonna do good with Trae Young. Trae Young, I think he might be playing to get into another situation, so he might do some he might have some good games here and there. And then the reason why I also have the Hornets in that position, either 9 or 10, the Hornets, I think they're just maturing a little bit more as a team, with LaMelo Ball, and I think they have some other good pieces to work with that. So yeah, those are my predictions for the East.
Did you give us the five at the bottom?
The five I have at the bottom, so we have the Nets, Wizards, Pistons, Raptors. That's four, and then so it would be either like I guess like the Hawks or the Hornets, unless I'm missing another squad. But or yeah, no, I think that's all the Yeah, I think I mentioned all the sports. Yeah. So Nets, Wizards, Pistons, and Raptors. And then probably, yeah, either Hornets or Hawks.
Okay, cheers. Well, I'm loving the way this discussion is going as well, because clearly there's a lot of similarity in terms of the top 10. I think and 100% almost across the board in the bottom five. So let's stick with the bottom five for now. For me, the bottom five are Toronto, Atlanta, Washington, Brooklyn, and Detroit. And I think the bottom three are pretty solid, and they are not going anywhere, no matter what trades, what movement happens throughout the league. It would have to be something the most blockbustery type trades you could imagine for those bottom three teams in Washington, Brooklyn, and Detroit to do anything. So Toronto and Atlanta, there's a little bit of hope for their future, but I don't think it impacts their current season too much. So I think those two teams are almost certainly locked out of the playoff position, barring somewhat of a major move. I think Trae Young may not remain on the Hawks even through this season, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Atlanta. And Toronto, it doesn't almost matter at all. I don't think they would need to move more than one player to make significant moves towards the playoffs this season. So at the top of the board, my list is Boston, Milwaukee, New York, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Indiana, Miami, Chicago, Charlotte, and Orlando. I agree with what you said, Moots, about Orlando. Orlando's actually on the come up. I think they're going to be impressing a few people, but the season will let us know whether or not that is a something to be mindful about for this year, or if it's something that we should be mindful more about for the future. I think Banchero is going to be something special in the league in the years to come, and certainly they've got a good staff around them, and quite a bit of talent, as well as some hope for the future. Boston, what can I say that hasn't been mentioned already? Yeah, I think there's some of the stuff regarding what happened to Tatum in the Olympics has not yet come out. I don't know if it ever will come out, but there has to be something that's not being said about the reason why he was benched during those games in the Olympics, why he didn't play much. Additionally, maybe the reason why they didn't choose Brown, there's some additional information there that it's probably going to come out in the coming months. I think the Brown stuff will probably come out more quickly and readily than the Tatum benching stuff. But I think largely the Brown call up would have been like to have two superstars or two upcoming superstars in the Olympics from one team might have caused a little bit of internal chaos. And I think that played a role in not calling up Brown when thing went down with this injury or when he was called not to play. So yeah, Boston, that is a revenge tour if ever I heard one. Tatum and Brown, if they didn't get along well before, they're going to find a reason to get along well this year because I think they want to do damage to the league in the East. So I think in the East, in terms of standings, I mentioned this in the West, everything being close knit and not much difference between win losses in the West. In the East, it's going to be ridiculous. I think Boston has a good chance of coming out with a record 65 or better wins at the end of it. And I don't see many other teams even making it into the 60s. Maybe 57 will be number two in the East. I have Milwaukee playing second because, like you said, Dame Lillard and Giannis will have a year under their belt. Doc Rivers has a year under his belt working with his team. They've had a full training camp. I don't think there are a lot of moves to be made. I wish they would make a couple of moves, but I don't want to speak on the moves I think they could make at this time, although I think I've mentioned or hinted towards it in previous years. I think I've hinted towards the fact that I think they could find someone to replace Middleton, and I know he's a very key part of their championship year, etc. But I think they're not using him correctly. And if I was him, I would try to find an exit. And I think you're not going to find a better chance other than this year, perhaps early in the year, to get a decent replacement for him. That would be useful, would be strongly useful. I think they need to solidify their bench. That said, I think they are still in the East, the second best team as currently constructed, if we assume the health of everybody, including Middleton. I think they're a fairly strong team. I like what they've done in terms of maintaining their consistency across the years and everything else. I do agree that perhaps some of the coaching criticisms of Doc Rivers is fair. So it remains to be seen whether or not he wants to change that narrative about himself going through this year. And I'll move on now to New York. New York has always been one of my favorite teams, and maybe there's a little bit of personal bias in some of the conversations that I'm going to have when it comes to New York and Philadelphia. Although I think I'm going to be pretty fair with it. As well as they did last year, I think they did fairly well in the offseason in making sure that their bench is improved. If that meant that renegating some of their starting roles goes towards the bench, I think the Towns pickup was actually great for them. I do not agree that Towns shooting is going to be the main benefit for having him. I mean, yes, he's placing the floor, but I think he plays within that system, and I think the way that he will play within that system is what's going to be the biggest selling point for him, and how much he can improve their team. I think he's a really good fit where Randall was not. Randall is a ball stopper, and I'm seeing that very much in what's happening with Minnesota. I did watch their one game, and I saw that immediately. I know that he was tentative and he was passing up a few early shots, but when he did start to get comfortable, he started to hold that ball, and I saw possessions wasted in the same way he was doing with New York. So he hasn't changed any. And yes, they have a lot of hope that he will be a better facilitator in Minnesota than he was in New York, but he's a ball stopper. And for that reason, I think I penalized Minnesota this year. I still see great things coming out of that team, but I think that's largely because I think that their coaching staff has been doing wonders with their team in any case. New York. What can I say about New York? I like their pickups. I think Anunoby is going to pick up some of the slack that they will lose with DiVincenzo. I think having Hart still there means that their bench defensive squad is still strong. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them in a position to not just make the playoffs, but be in good standing in the playoffs this year. I think last year came out a little bit out of left field with how strong they played, but I don't think they're hiding from anybody this year. I think we now recognize that this is a really strong squad, and it's a team as opposed to a group of individual players. What I think may hold them back is the coaching style and the reliance on overplaying players, not just in the regular season, but also in the playoffs. So there are a few bench spots maybe that they can pick up, but it only matters if they get played. Cleveland side of things, like you, Moots, I haven't watched Cleveland. I've seen their rankings or whatever in the last few years increasing steadily. I can't really speak on them. I'm largely basing the fourth seed based on how they've done in the last few years. And assuming that they're not going to drop off significantly, I think fourth seed is a pretty fair spot to put them in. Philadelphia. Philadelphia is my team. I've made no secret of this. I've said it in many years. I like the moves they've made. I'm not a fan of the position Embiid is taking about not playing back-to-backs. I think it was Garnett, or perhaps it was Howard or someone that said recently, it's not that he needs to sacrifice the amount of games he plays, but he needs to sacrifice minutes. I think he needs to play 60, 70 games, but I think he needs to reduce his minutes from 30-something minutes. He's still capable of putting up 30 points in 20-something minutes, but I don't think that should be relied upon. I think him putting up 25 points, but playing 20 minutes or so, 22 minutes to maintain his health and maintain his stamina would be better suited than playing fewer games. And the way he played last year, he was amazing. And I think it's widely agreed that outside of them having this rule, he would have been the MVP last year. This rule, even with the amount of games he played, he was the most dominant force in the NBA last season. And it's a real pity that they're taking this approach with him. I do also question whether or not this is his decision or the team's decision in this the way he sees it going forward. But I do wish the best for them, and I think they are a good enough squad that they can make 4 or 5 in this East, given the way East makeup is currently. Again, these standings are what they are, and we're basing these predictions largely on the rosters as they're currently constructed. I don't think Philadelphia has any more moves in play outside of getting people healthy enough to play consistently. And I think having them play consistently with well organized minutes is the key to them doing well as it comes later in the year towards postseason and beyond. Indiana. I think Indiana overachieved last year. I think they did quite well, but I really do believe that they had no right. I can't remember if it was if they played Miami or Philadelphia or both of them. But yeah, they had no right beating both, if not either of those teams. I think both those teams were better, but I think injuries played a large role in them succeeding as well as they did. That said, they've always been a little bit better in the regular season than a lot of these Eastern Conference squads, and that's why I will have them in the spot that I have them in, which I think is 7th, 6th. Yeah, so I have them higher this year, or I have them where they're placed this year, largely because I think they do play better during the regular season than they should be qualified for, basically. Because I certainly think Miami has a better squad, a better system, better players, and should be doing better. And so I think Miami doesn't do so well largely because of health. But I think Miami, as my next team on this list, they're due for a couple of changes, and those are going to come sooner rather than later. And we will see some shaking, some moves there. But I think in the Eastern landscape, those changes are not going to significantly move the needle negatively or positively. So I think that regardless, I think having them where I have them now keeps them in pretty good standing. So seven for Miami. And the last 3 are fairly interchangeable. Chicago, I like the fact that Ball has come back. It remains to be seen what changes they also are going to make, as I think there will be some changes made in Chicago. And that could influence them being they could potentially be a top 6 team before the end of it. I think Chicago's probably in a better position to move up to the top 6 and secure themselves a playoff spot early on. Charlotte, I look for the second ball brother to have a breakout year. And I think their team is decent enough. And that team just needs a little bit better coaching, perhaps. And we'll see what happens in Charlotte. Orlando, I've spoken on already. Yeah, so those are my 8 to 10 teams coming out of the East. What are your thoughts?
Well, actually, just real quick, speaking on how like we were focusing or a lot of the attention is on the West and then not so much on the East. I completely forgot about the Bulls. So, but I quickly ranked them as not making playoffs or play in. But yeah, no, interesting thoughts that you brought up. Things to think about too. Like I think some of the things that you picked up with the Knicks and with the Sixers as well, that totally makes sense. But East is not looking too exciting.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if I expand further and just already start the discussion on teams to watch in the East, I'm going to watch Philadelphia. I'm going to watch New York. I think those are a given. Miami, I'm going to watch the change that they make because I think they're going to make one. But as I said, I don't think it's going to be significant enough to put them automatically into the playoffs. It's not going to push them out of the top 10 teams, but I don't think it pushes them into the top six. So it won't be significant, but I'm curious to see what happens with Butler, because I think he's not long for that team. And I would be very happy for whichever team lands him because he he's a little bit of a Chris Paul archetype in that the teams that he moves to, if not in the long run, certainly in the short run, they improve. So he doesn't seem like a player that he's going to cut corners because he knows he's on his way out. I think he'll play very strongly. I think he has a very good um, early start of the season. But I think Miami will capitalize on that, especially when I think that some of those bridges may be in need of repair, let's say, to put it the best way I can. So my teams to watch coming out of the East will be New York, Philadelphia, Miami, and Milwaukee. I know Boston's going to do what it's going to do. As I said, I think they're going to run away in the East. So I'm not really too bothered. I have not been a super fan of Boston in these previous years. I do recognize that this particular year, they're about to do something that hasn't been done in many years in the East, I think. But and kudos to them. I think that's really great. I think they have a very strong and well-equipped team to do something special this year. And so kudos to them. I'm still not going to watch them. I'm more likely to watch Philadelphia to see what happens with Andrew Drummond as he replaces Embiid. And yeah, Philadelphia being my team, I could strongly support the fact that they're no longer dealing with some of the players which I thought were harming their team in the past, and are no longer there. Um, I'm happy that Harris has found a new location, but I'm happy that he's no longer in Philadelphia. I think they have opportunity to boost that 3-4 spot, and I look forward to seeing what happens when they are full health and playing full strength. As I said, I think that they need to revisit that decision from Embiid to not play back to backs, because that will hurt him in the long run. I think having the repetition is something that helps his game, and taking away games is going to hurt that side of things. So I think he needs to have the repetition. I think he needs to be playing. I don't think he needs those minutes, the heavy minutes per game, but I do think he needs to be playing as many games as possible. Out of the West, I could watch any number of teams. I'm going to start with OKC because, like Boston, I haven't really been watching them in the last few years. But unlike Boston, I think I'm willing to take a bet and say OKC is going to be worth watching this year. Dallas, similarly, Thompson being in Dallas makes them must watch. They gelled really well early on. It remains to be seen whether or not Kyrie's going to do something dumb and mess up that chemistry. But for the time being, I'm very happy with what I've seen out of Dallas. I think I'm very happy with that. I understand the criticisms for Denver about them not having a deep enough bench. Again, I think Denver is one of those teams that's going to make some changes towards the middle of the season. Not immediately, but certainly towards the middle of the season before All-Star break. They'll probably make a couple of changes, but not to their core. I think more to their bench. Unless something amazing happens, someone amazing becomes available. But their bench needs to be strengthened. Minnesota, I'm going to watch Anthony Edwards all day. I really hope Randall doesn't mess up that team chemistry. I hope he plays within their system well. But Anthony Edwards makes watching Minnesota worthwhile. Phoenix, I'm not trying to watch Phoenix. Lakers, I'm not really trying to watch Lakers either, but I understand that there's some of this is going to be unavoidable. New Orleans, I really want to see what happens with New Orleans. I think that they have a promise. I don't think their depth is strong enough. But that said, I think they can make some waves this season. San Antonio Spurs, I will always watch San Antonio Spurs put Pop. I've been a huge fan of his for a long time, so I wish him all the success in these next few years. I think Wemby and Chris Paul together are about to make history. It's going to be crazy. I hope that Chris Paul remains healthy. Clippers, you have some. Uh, I don't have the strength and conviction in their team doing super well. I think if everybody's healthy, great, but I don't think they have enough bench to merit any super success in the West. So I'm not really going to watch them. I'll follow a couple of games here and there to see where they're lining up. Golden State, I'm interested because I think there's going to be some changes there, and I really want to see how Curry does without Thompson. So I've been following them for the last few years. I'm happy with them. I think there are a couple of changes that they're going to make, and I hope they don't make the wrong ones. I think Kuminga should stay. Moody, it'll be interesting to see whether he stays or goes. But I know that there are some players out there, some very nice players for whom both of those two players I could see being moved in favor of. That said, I think it might be a loss to see Kuminga going so early on. I think perhaps there's some coaching changes in terms of how he's coached that need to be made for Kuminga, but he's around vets, so even his shortcomings in the last few years are a little bit mysterious to me. So I don't want to see him go. However, I could see him flourishing somewhere else, and I can see them letting him go in favor of a player who fits their system more strongly, I guess. As for the bottom five teams, Utah, Houston, Portland, nah, be good on those. Memphis and Sacramento. Let's see what happens. It'll be interesting. I think Sacramento has a chance to do well, but I don't think their team is ready yet. I think it's too young. I think they need some other talent to help them out. And I think they probably need a veteran or two. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that side of the equation. Colin, any thoughts on teams to watch? Any additional thoughts?
I have teams to watch. I have New York, just because I feel like they have, like I said from last season, they have some momentum that they will be bringing with them. I mean, just watching the few games that they have played, they've come with that momentum. New Orleans looks good. I mean, I know it's just two games, but they look good. They look really good. And Chicago as well is another team I was thinking will really take up things in the East if they really decide to. Who else? I would say those three are for me are the teams I would watch out for. Just New York, Chicago, and actually and San Antonio as well. San Antonio would be a good team to watch. Would be interesting to see how far CP3 and Wemby take they're looking good so far. I mean, they're playing good together. So it'll be good to see how far they can take that. But yeah, I would say San Antonio, New York, Chicago, and there's another team I just said, but I can't remember what I said.
I just want to jump in on like some of the teams to watch too, because like I took some notes on some extra things as well. And then coming off of what just both of you said about the San Antonio Spurs, we have the CP3 and Wemby combination. And then also I think what would be interesting to note is that Chris Paul has always, regarded Popovich as, one of the greatest I think he said something along the lines of like he can't imagine where it's a dream to play for Pop. So I think that relationship will strengthen and get better and definitely improve the team. But then also coming back on other teams to watch, I'm definitely gonna watch the Mavs. Like I said, like the so having just watched that one game, and I was looking at like, and I think they're gonna be a lot on social media. Here's why, because of the highlights. Now, Doncic, he's a megastar, right? He's gonna attract a lot of attention because of also his antics on the court. Now, and the one thing that I saw, for instance, was that like, Klay Thompson open for a three-point shot. Already, Doncic pulling up like, some antics, not even looking, already walking back on defense. So, there's that hype and that fun that's gonna come into it. So I think Mavericks fans are gonna be super excited, and that's one thing they gotta watch. And then here's the thing, like just coming to it just came to mind is like after I think even just 2 or 3 quarters, I was like, uh-oh, has Klay Thompson found a splash cousin? He got Doncic and also Kyrie. It's gonna be so much fun just with the antics they're gonna have on the court and everything. So that's one team I'm gonna watch for them. And then coming, back again to the Clippers, so I have kind of had I've been a little bit of a fan of the Clippers for a while, and on and off that type of thing. But this squad, I don't know, there's just something that speaks to me, and I think Harden is gonna do. He's gonna go into. He has how to put it. He has different styles of playing. He's an amazing offensive player, not in terms of putting the ball in the basket, but also with the pick and roll, his passing and everything, right? Him and Zubac, and then now you have Derrick Jones Jr. I think there's gonna be some sort of like a triangle pick and roll, both top pick and roll and middle or bottom pick and roll that they're gonna really maximize to its full potential. So they let's put it this way: if they could be the dark horse, but I think that's going to be something super exciting. And then another thing, they're going to get some games off of the new stadium. Michael, you mentioned it before. This Intuit, I forgot the name of the arena. It looks amazing. And then they also have what's called like this thing, the wall, where you have diehard fans or at least like proper Clippers fans. They can potentially disrupt the opposing team, the visitors, and they can also enhance and bring energy to the home team, the Mavs. So that's going to be super exciting for not only fans of the Clippers, but also fans of basketball and NBA in general. And then, so those are the two teams I'm going to be really watching and probably try to catch as many games as I can is the Mavs and the Clippers. But then also, I think with the Lakers, they have a great storyline in terms of like, Bronny James coming in. But then also AD, I don't know, he just looks a little bit different. He looks a little bit more mature in terms of his gameplay. That's something I've always wanted to see when it comes to Anthony Davis. He can play center and power forward, and I think he's gonna try and do something with the Defensive Player of the Year or maybe even MVP. So yeah, definitely another team to watch. They're always gonna have like history in LA. LeBron James, he's not only breaking records, now he's even setting new records. So yeah, we as basketball fans, whether we like LeBron or the Lakers or not, there's something definitely to watch out. And then yeah, watching out specifically teams in the East. I like what you said, Michael, about the Sixers and Embiid's minutes coming into play. And then Colin, you mentioned the was it Andre Drummond? Amazing defensive rebounder or rebounder in general. I think is going to make a big impact. So I'm going to be watching out for them. But yeah, Celtics, everybody has to watch them. I agree with both of you. Something special, I think, is going to happen, either good or bad. So yeah, those are pretty much teams. Not only I think as fans we should watch out for, but also the ones that I'm gonna follow.
I don't know about the Mavs. You guys seem more sold on them than I am, but we'll see. I guess we'll see. I feel like they will end up around fifth, somewhere there, fourth or fifth. I'm not too sold on them. I mean, yes, I do agree they could be very entertaining, very fun to watch. I do think Clay as well will have a very good season. He looks like he will average 20 at least. in my opinion. But just the way things go with them, it's never really consistent. So I'm just not too. I'm happy to be proven wrong on that one, but I'm just not too sold on them yet.
Yeah, the mass situation is going to be one we will happily tell you about as the season progresses. But basically, here's my rationale for thinking the Mavs are as strong as they are. They have two big men who play like big men and are consistently healthy. They now have three non-ball dominant high-level scorers who are very willing to pass and share. This is something that the Warrior made the Warriors good when during their run is the fact that their scorers were also very willing to pass the ball and knew how to play within a system. I think the knock on Kyrie has usually been that he tries to do sometimes a little bit too much. But I think certainly in the last 2 years, to give him his credit, he's learned that he can rely on his teammates a little bit better. And certainly he's now functioning in a system that exposes weaknesses at every level. So whether you're a big man scorer or backcourt player scorer, if you are someone that has a singular ball dominant person, they can take advantage both at a defensive point as well as an offensive point by saying, okay, let's say Durant is playing on his own. Okay, he's part of a five-man lineup playing on his own, and being fed the ball a lot. Jason Kidd is one of the smartest coaches in the NBA, and I'm sure he's going to get his credit at some point later on. And I think they know to attack that ball dominant score so that they're using more energy on the defensive side of the ball, and that weakens their offensive output.
I mean, I beg to differ because they just played like 2 nights ago or a night ago, and the guys just don't defend. Like this Luca, yes, he's running back, but he's not doing anything after running back. He's not defending. Kyrie is not
I think
defending nobody.
I think their
So
system defense is on point. Like I said, they have two large, big people in the back, in the front
I
court.
don't
Basically,
see it.
they're.
I don't see it translating to great defense for them. Like on paper, yes, they have two guys who are really good, but if you watch the games, they just not they're not defending to the caliber that they should be defending. Especially when you have two liabilities constantly on defense. You have Luca and you have Kyrie. They're not going to defend nobody.
I
So
think
the
we saw
big
that both of
men.
those players are capable of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but
so
what I'm saying
yeah,
is
I see
like
your point. I see your point. I see traditionally, yes, their defense has been lacking significantly, but when they put their heads to it, both Kyrie and Luca have demonstrated an ability to play defense.
yeah,
So
but
yes,
like Kyrie is how many years in the league now? Some things just are not going to change. We are not expecting Kyrie to all of a sudden become a defender. It's not happening.
But he
well, he
did.
Luca
was a
is
defender his first
But
3 years in the league. His first three,
yeah,
four
but
years in the league, he was a defender. He
that
was known as
that
a
is
defender.
how many years ago is that?
but
He
then
I'm
since
not saying the
moved
time
on
hasn't
from
passed,
that.
but he perhaps hasn't been motivated in the way he should be motivated this year.
and I think this year he is
I just
motivated
don't see it.
because I think it
I
was
mean,
it not last year or the year before? He said he wanted to be a more of a defensive player and maybe even get defensive player of the year. So Kyrie's determination is to play defense.
well, watch the
And
game. It's not
and
there. What he's saying and what he's doing it's not happening. Luca is
so
running back.
you're at an
Granted,
advantage to us because I haven't watched much of the season. If I watched a little bit of one of their games, I can't remember which one it was. I watched a little bit of it. In fact, I think it was just highlights I saw for the game that I saw. But the quotes that I was hearing is basically Thompson is saying that people are going to be surprised at his defense. No, he was a two, top three, two-way player in the league for many years. So I wouldn't be surprised by his defense. I'd be happy to see its return. But I know he's well capable is healthy, and I think he's healthy. So even if they're deficient at Kyrie and Luca, I think Luke Thompson makes up for some of that, and their bench makes up for more of that. So yes, I agree that we have to see it from Kyrie and we have to see it from Luca, but I think they've demonstrated in the past an ability, if not a willingness, to be defenders. Luca's defense in last year's playoffs was top notch. I think that's a fair assessment. And I think, as I said before, I think this year they're going to be motivated. Yeah, so he's played 1 or 2 games this season and you haven't seen it. I think there's a lot of growing room still to be done. Even if from what I have seen, I've been impressed. I do still think there are technically a new fives coming together, and so there's still some growing space. But as I said before, I think Jason Kidd is a smart coach, and I think he will have them taking advantage of the ability that they have. And I think from top to bottom now, in fact, in terms of their guard play, all three of them are super smart players. I want Luca to be a little bit more mature in his play. That much I will absolutely concede that to you. I think he's a little bit immature in that he's still begging for fouls, crying over calls as opposed to getting back on defense. I think that's still something that's a weakness of his, but I think that can improve. I think he's now got another championship in his wheelhouse, in Klay Thompson, to support the things that he needs to change and things he needs to focus on. But having that sort of veteran leadership and that winning culture enter your back into your home has got to rub off on you somehow, some way, somehow. And so I look forward to seeing what they're going to do. I don't, in this Western Conference, let me put it differently. In this Western Conference, I see them having the ability, all things remaining equal, everybody remaining healthy. I think they have a very strong possibility in the regular season, because these are basically our regular season predictions, to do very well. And like I said, a game or two here or there may significantly improve any one team, especially in that top 6 to 8 range. But because of how close everything is going to be. But at the end of the day, if I look through their teams, I think coachability, good coaching, coachability, team structure, depth play a role where they, looking against all the other teams in the West, certainly in the top 6, if not 8, if not 15, they have the best odds to continue to progress. And I think OKC falls behind simply because they don't have the experience yet. I think they have great coaching. I think they have a great team. They have great outlook for the future. But I still think that the experience factor is a little bit behind. And I think they can run a lot of people out the gym and they have a lot of hope for the future because of how young they are. But I do believe that knowing the game and playing it at this level over time has its advantages.
I
So
have OKC high because I feel like they're like where the Celtics were 3 years ago, like just before the championship. So I mean, they have been to the dance a few times now. So I feel the gap in experience is starting to close in. I mean, the playoffs are the playoffs. You don't need to play 20 of them to understand what the playoffs is. You play 3 or 4. I feel like you kind of get the idea of what's going on. And I feel like they're at that point now. Like, okay, we're not scared of you all. We know what the playoffs is. We know what the finals, conference final looks like. Like we're here now. Like that's why I have them there. You guys were also not big on the Golden State, and my Buddy Hield he's a splash brother. He's been a very good pickup for them. He's out there playing like Clay, vintage Clay. So that's why I'm kind of good on them because Buddy Hield has proved to be a very good pickup, and with the rest of the team, it fits. It all works out. He's not taking up minutes or anything. Just coming in, shooting his threes very efficiently and leaving, you know. I think it's going to pan out well for them. Mavs, like I said, the defense for me is where I have issue with them, and they can score. They can score with anybody out there, but I'm just not sold on their defense. I mean, we played them in the finals, and the defense is non-existent. I mean, whoever played them, the defense is non-existent. They just we're not that good to how we played them. So I don't know. I'm not sold on them. But Golden State, yes. I see something there with Buddy Hield. They've been playing pretty good. Like they should not be that good. They're looking very good.
These are predictions. We don't know. I haven't watched Golden State. I haven't watched enough of Dallas to make firm assessments. These are predictions, and so you're welcome to the prediction. And I was saying that basically these are predictions, and we'll see where we stand at the end of the year. But I look forward to the conversations. I haven't watched enough. I mean, I haven't watched anything really from this year or the preseason to know what's going to be coming. But this is just off of what I've seen so far. Dallas, for me, has a very bright future in this current season. I haven't watched anything from OKC, but I think they're super young, and that's where their limiting factor comes in. Chet is going to be a 2 year player. He's going to be in his second year this next year. The Williams brothers, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do, how they grow and mature. But I think they're 3 and 4 years respectively in the league. Shea's probably one of the older team members, which is scary to say in that group, along with Caruso, who's recently joined. I like the Hartenstein pickup. I think that's great for them. They're gonna do well. And I said earlier, I think they're gonna run a lot of teams out of the gym, and I think they're gonna do well this year. But in terms of where I'm placing them in the grand scheme of things, yes, they're 1 or 2, and I told you already. Basically, a game or two here or there to throw anything in the West off its axis. But I'm pretty happy with where I put in both those teams for the time being. Moots, did you have further thoughts in terms of where you're putting people, teams to look out for, players in particular you want to take a look out for?
Yeah, just coming off of like the defensive talk, especially with who's it with the Mavericks. So here's the thing, and I'm glad you guys mentioned about like basketball IQ. The way I see with the Mavs is that so la last season, right? They had a lot of the offensive responsibilities on Kyrie and Luca. So th they had a lot of energy, saved up for offense. And okay, we say that like yeah, Luca played great defense in the postseason. Okay, but then further on in the finals, I don't think we really saw it there because and he looked very fatigued and everything. Anyways, basically all that to say is that I think with the addition of Klay Thompson now, is that let's say Luca and Klay or Klay and Kyrie or one of those three gets on fire, two of the three really heats up and gets on fire, which is probably like almost like every single game. Now the other player, the other one of the three, can put much more focus and energy into defense, right? And then I think we cannot count out Gafford and Lively the second because now they have like the experience, they're gonna bring the energy. So I think it's just gonna take time. Maybe we didn't see it in this first couple of games, but I think it's gonna take a little bit of time. And I think the defense is really gonna improve over the season just because of that aspect of the distribution of energy in terms of like offense and defense. And then, oh man, yo, Colin, I'm surprised you said the thing about defense with the Celtics because I was considering them as like one of the top defenders in the league right now. From what I saw, at
No,
least
no,
from that one game.
I meant when we played the Mavs is what I meant.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I didn't see their defense.
yeah. Well, I mean, they pretty much
Celtics
just
were built on defense. I feel we're the top defensive team in the league.
even right
I
now,
think so. Yes.
and they're
But
gonna be this
hey,
season.
I think so too,
Yeah,
because we have defense from 1 to 5.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah. Just his thoughts, yeah, right there, real quick. Oh, and then lastly, if we're gonna continue with the predictions and everything, there was a wild card in there. I think one of the wild cards for me as well is the NBA as a whole. I'm hearing that they want to push and focus more on defense. So we might want to watch in terms of like, okay, are there gonna be like further rule changes? How are they gonna view and officiate this season coming in? And how are teams going to improve their defense in some sort of way? But I think that, yeah, just that's something to look out for. And just again to pump up my Clippers, I guess they're my Clippers now, becoming a fan. Jeff Van Gundy, defensive coordinator, what I saw from how they play defense, I think is going to be a totally different game. But I think that's something we got to talk about when we have more games into the season, because now we're only talking about predictions.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Honestly, yeah, we are only talking about the first, predictions at the time being. I'm just going to take a look over at this team from the Clippers because I want to learn. So I'm gonna lean on you a little bit, Moots, throughout this season for you to explain to me where your standings, your strength in supporting their current team is. I'm looking over the roster quickly. Kawhi is not going to play many games. I'm just say that right now. I think Harden's going to have a beast year, and
Yeah.
I'm scared. I'm scared for whoever's guarding him this year because he's going to play quite angry, and I would be upset if I was him.
And
Quite frankly,
really watch out for the pick and rolls. That pick and roll
yeah,
often is gonna be crazy. And then
Mo Bamba is not going to play. He's
yeah,
not going to play lasting minutes. Terrence Mann. Okay, so a few years ago, I likened Terrence Mann to Let's Get Out of Philly, but I reversed my thing on that. I don't think he's there. I think he's got a very strong attitude, but I just don't think maybe LA is not the space for him. I'm gonna say Terrence Mann, I was hopeful for, but I'm taking away my giving him credit. I really like Nicholas Batum. Highland, I think he's a good player, good stretch player. He stretches the floor really well. I don't think he attacks enough. If he took a few key pointers from Harden, I think he should be in the paint a little bit more. But he's a good shooter. I like his style of play. Just wish he was a little bit more aggressive. And I wish Terrence Mann would shoot a little bit more. Like when I mean, I wish he would choose to be a little bit more aggressive sometimes because clearly he plays well when he's aggressive. But I think he likes to not be a centerpiece of attention a little bit too much. I think he's okay not playing aggressive. PJ Tucker, I still like him defensively. I don't like him on this team, but it is what it is. Nicholas Batum, I'm a fan of, and Norman Powell is a bucket. So
I really like Nicholas
yeah,
Batum as a pickup, especially on the defensive end. IQ and length.
yeah. I think he's great. For as old as he is, I honestly think he's a wonderful he's a good fit in a lot of teams. And I think you're right. IQ is great. I think defensive wise he's great. I think the fact that he knows what he's doing with the ball instantly. He's not one of these. He's got to make a large decision. He will pass it quickly. He will shoot it quickly. He will make a play quickly, and he's a smart defender. So that pickup is really good for them. Derek Jones Jr. It depends how they play these guys and what minutes they give them. Basically, I just over the long run, I don't see them doing super well. But I give them. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm certainly a fan of Kawhi, and if he's playing good for them, however, he's got a really bad attitude in terms of getting trying to see the floor. I understand he's one of the hardest trainers in the world or whatever, but trying to play games, I don't think he's trying to play games in the regular season. So from that end, I just don't see them doing good and well in the regular season, well enough in the regular season. And Harden, he's going to put up numbers, but he's not going to. Those numbers don't equate to team wins, especially in the West. I'm sorry, it's just not happening. But I look forward to you proving me wrong on that one. Very much looking forward to seeing what Golden State does. Looking to see what happens with Utah. San Antonio is going to be
Okay.
amazing. I think we've abused this topic a little bit much now. Shall we just quickly touch on what we said earlier, or do you
We
want to
can
call
probably
that?
only do the MVP real quick because we're coming up on an hour and a half. We end with that one.
Yeah, let's do
Moods
MVP.
can go first.
So MVP, I have three. There is James Harden, just because of the load he has to carry with the team. And then there's the headline of also him not having Kawhi Leonard. So if they win a lot of games, I think he will be definitely in the MVP talks. AD, I just think that like, yeah, he's more polished, and then he has a really strong offensive and defensive dominance every time he's on the court. And then I think Ant-Man, because of his growth, and then also the fact that like he's kind of being seen as the future of the league, and the league knows that too. And so they would want to, I think, push him for being the MVP. The MVP would highlight so much more, and it would bring a lot more attention to the league and the new generation coming up. So that's it for me. James Harden, Anthony Davis, and Ant-Man. I'd probably say Ant-Man as the front runner.
Okay, Colin, do you want to?
I have JT, like I said before. I feel like he's setting out to prove something this season, and not even just only from the Olympics, but also from the playoffs, like JB getting all the awards. I feel like he just has something to say this season, you know. So I have him as my front runner, but I have Luca and Anthony Edwards as the other two that could contend for it. Because Luca, I feel like his regular season, like out of his sleep, is an MVP season. So I think he'll do good this. I mean, at least numbers wise, I don't think he will fail to put up the case to be an MVP. And Edwards, I have him third because he's his numbers, I don't think he will have the numbers like the other contenders. He will have numbers, but not like them. His impact is different. It's not in the numbers. So I have him third simply because I feel like numbers is part of the criteria, and I feel like his numbers just won't come up to the level of Luca or JT. But his impact might propel him in that conversation, his impact on the team. But numbers wise, those two guys, I feel they have him beat on the numbers part. He has them beat on the impact, and you need both. So I feel like their numbers and impact is greater than his numbers and impact. But I still have him in the race because I think he will have also a very breakout, like a big season.
I couldn't agree more with you. I'd probably put the order a little bit differently, but I think your arguments are real strong there, Colin. And I sort of almost completely agree with you. And fourth at a stretch is also for me Anthony Davis. I think those are the only four people who really this early in the season, this early in the year, merit having that discussion. Shea Gilgeous is a number five, but again, his team is getting better. So I think his scoring requirements going into this year are going to be fewer. So he's not going to be scoring 30 plus a game at the rate he was last year. I don't think it's going to come down significantly, but I think it's going to be a little bit down because his squad is starting to even out a little bit. And Caruso's probably going to be doing a lot of the ball handling if he's starting. Again, I don't know. I haven't seen any games played, so I don't know if he's starting or not. But that's the way I see it evening it out. I agree. I was gonna say my first thoughts were I was gonna say Brown and Tatum equal odds for MVP, largely because of off-season stuff, largely because I think Brown deserves some conversational thing because I think having won it now and seeing what happened in the off-season and stuff kicks in his motivation to another level, and I think it was high enough already. But I think now tasting a little bit of it through the two MVP awards that he got, tasting that Finals MVP in particular, his reaction to winning it was classic. My eyes were on him for the whole time, and I didn't realize he would be surprised by winning it. But he took a step back when they announced. So I put them as a tie, but I also was hesitant to put either of them because I think they take away from each other's greatness in terms of being recognized for the MVP. I think they're going to play super well together. I think they're going to have hell of years, both of them. But I will err on the side of what you said, Colin, and say that perhaps Tatum, more so than Brown, will want it more and will probably go after it in a way that we haven't seen since, or for a long time, let's just say. And yeah, Luka and AE were my next along that line. And I think AE deserves that third spot behind Luka, largely because, as you say, I think his numbers aren't as necessarily reflective of the results that he generates. So he generates a winning culture, like by demanding a certain level of a play, I guess. Like you can't play alongside someone who's making those brags and boasts, and as well as going out to show it each and every night, and not be and be content with mediocrity. So you have to go out and play. So I think he's really good for that team. I think Julius Randle better fall in line to that style, to that mindset. And so I think he has an opportunity. It's not going to be a breakout year because now people see him coming, but I think he's going to have a very significant year for the team. So I think the Minnesota Timberwolves will go as far as they want. He wants them to go, and I think the league will really try to promote and gas him up to the point where it'll be hard to ignore his contributions to the team success. I guess that's it from my end on the MVP topic. But
Then,
yeah,
no, those are really good points that both of y'all made, and actually to the point where I have to adjust now my MVP predictions because, yeah, I think
love it.
yeah, Tatum, yeah, I think he's gonna have some sort of special year, so I'm gonna definitely put him up there. But then also one thing you guys mentioned that is super critical is that there's also like storylines and narratives that we have to pay attention to. So, like I said, with the Ant-Man taking over the league, that sort of thing, bringing in the new generation. But then also you have Luka, and if the Mavs are going to win a lot of games, a lot of it, I think that the league will, because that's something also we got to consider. Because think about it. In the last few years, a few seasons, we have a lot of talks between MVP, and then we look at stats and everything. We don't even really have a proper definition of the most valuable player. So I think we have to take into account as well narratives, where the league is going, that sort of thing. So yeah, I've adjusted my MVP, Ant-Man, Luka, and then Tatum, AD, and then Harden.
Okay, so I have to drop off, guys, because I have two people just tried to call me in this time, and I ducked them both. I need to get them back. One is my grandma, so I need to get back
Well,
to
that's an
her.
immediate callback. That's an
For
immediate
sure, for
callback.
sure.
All right,
Yeah.
listen, guys, really appreciate you guys taking the time. We did really well today, so
Yeah,
I'm happy
yeah.
with the topics. And yeah,
Okay, guys.
Colin, appreciate it.
Mm,
Much appreciate it.
no
Thank you very
problem.
much, guys.
Thank you,
Have
guys.
a good week ahead.
I like this. Have a good one. Enjoy your week.
All right,
Have a good
cheers.
one.
All right, peace, peace.